The market was alive with noise, voices echoing through the hot air. Alien traders shouted their prices. Cages rattled as the slaves inside moved nervously. Some cried, some begged, but most stayed silent, waiting for their fate. At the far end of the auction block stood a cage larger than the rest. Inside it stood a figure so tall that her head almost touched the iron bars. She was an alien girl, but not like the others. Her body was stronger, her form larger, her presence so different that people stopped to stare. Paint had been smeared across her skin, cruel red marks that read in alien script, "Too big to breed." Another mark said, "For meat only." The crowd laughed whenever they passed her cage. Some spat. Others joked about how much her body would weigh after slaughter. She did not look at them. Her glowing eyes stayed low, her shoulders heavy. She had learned long ago that staring back only brought more pain. She stood in silence, a giant among the small, unwanted, unfit for the role her species valued most. The auctioneer climbed onto the raised platform, his voice sharp like a blade. He called out the slaves one by one. Small ones were sold quickly, strong ones for work, pretty ones for breeding. Coins and credits passed hands. The crowd cheered at every sale. When the large alien girl was dragged forward, the crowd grew louder. Laughter filled the air. The auctioneer shouted, "Here she is, the beast, the oversized one. No man of her kind wants her, no family can use her, but her meat is plenty." His words made the crowd roar with cruel amusement. The girl kept her eyes on the ground. She had heard these words too many times. Every sound cut deeper than a blade. She did not fight, she did not beg, she had no strength left for either. The auctioneer began the bidding. "Who will pay for this bulk, this walking meal?" he shouted. "Start low, she is no jewel, but her flesh will fill many stomachs." Hands did not rise, voices did not call. The crowd mocked, but no one wanted her. Some laughed and said she was cursed, others said she was useless. The auctioneer grew red with anger. "Worthless," he spat. "I will cut the price, anyone at all." And then a voice spoke, calm and steady, a human voice. The crowd went silent for a moment, turning to see who had spoken. There he was, a human, plain clothes, no weapons in sight, just standing in the middle of the market with his hand raised. The auctioneer blinked in surprise. "You, human, you want this beast." His laugh was harsh. "Do you know what you are buying? Do you understand? She is no bride, no worker, no treasure. She is only meat." The human did not answer with words. He simply nodded, his eyes fixed on the girl, not with disgust, not with cruelty, but with something else the crowd did not understand. Whispers spread quickly. "He is mad," some said. "Humans are strange," others muttered. "Maybe he wants to feed her to his animals." The girl lifted her eyes for the first time, just a little, enough to see the human's face. There was no laughter there, no hunger, no mockery, just calm, steady eyes watching her. Her heart thudded in her chest. She did not understand. No one had ever looked at her that way, not in all the years she had lived in chains. The auctioneer shook his head, but a sale was a sale. He slammed his staff down and shouted, "Sold! The beast is yours, human fool." The cage door opened with a rusty creak. Heavy chains were placed in the human's hands. The girl stepped out, tall, strong, yet broken inside. The crowd jeered. Some threw scraps of food, others spat on the ground where she walked. The human did not speak. He only held the chains lightly, not pulling, not dragging, as if he did not want to treat her like property. The girl walked beside him, her steps heavy, her heart uncertain. She waited for the blow that always came, the command, the cruelty. But none came. As they moved through the crowd, voices followed them. Laughter, curses, mockery. Yet the human kept walking, silent and steady. And in that silence, something strange happened inside her. A spark, tiny and fragile. The thought that maybe this time, just maybe, her story would not end with slaughter. The chains were heavy, clinking against the ground as the human led her away from the auction block, the crowd still shouting behind them. Some called him insane. Others laughed. A few even spat at his back, but he did not turn. His steps were steady, his hand calm. On the chains, the girl walked beside him, her shoulders tense, her glowing eyes never leaving the ground. She did not understand this man. He had spent his credits on her when everyone else said she was worthless. What use could he have for someone too large, too different, too marked? As they moved deeper into the market, whispers followed. Merchants peered out of their stalls. Children pointed, guards frowned. The sight of a human leading such a giant alien girl was strange, almost offensive. Some shook their heads, muttering that it was wrong. Finally, they stopped near a quiet corner of the market, away from the main crowd. The human turned and faced her for the first time. He lifted the chains slightly, but his voice was calm, not cruel. "Do these hurt you?" he asked. She blinked, unsure. If she had heard him right, slaves were not asked questions. They were given orders. Still, she answered softly, her voice low like a broken song. "Chains always hurt." He nodded, and without another word, he pulled out a small tool from his belt. It clicked and sparked as he worked on the iron cuffs. The crowd gasped in shock. "What is he doing?" someone whispered. "He's letting the beast free." The lock snapped open. The chains fell to the ground. Her wrists, scarred and bruised, felt the air for the first time in years. She stared at him with wide eyes, confusion burning in her chest. No one had ever done this, not even those who pretended kindness. Chains were always kept on, to remind her she was less than a person, and yet here he was, standing calmly as if freeing her was the most natural thing in the world. She stepped back slowly, waiting for a trick, waiting for the strike that always followed false mercy. But his eyes did not change. They stayed steady, warm. The human's voice was soft. "You are not meat," he said. "You are not property." His words were simple, but they cut through years of cruelty like a blade through rope. The girl's lips trembled. She wanted to believe him, but her heart was afraid. She had been fooled before. She had been beaten for trusting. She shook her head, whispering, "You bought me, I am yours, that is the law." The human leaned closer, his voice firm now. "The law is wrong," he said. "I did not buy you to own you. I bought you to save you." Her knees felt weak, the words echoed inside her. No one had ever said such a thing. No one had ever looked at her and seen more than size, more than flesh. But before she could answer, the sound of boots and weapons filled the air. A group of merchants and guards stormed into the corner, their faces angry, their hands ready. "There, he is," one shouted. "The human fool who wasted his money," another spat. "He cannot keep her. She belongs to the market. She belongs to us." The human stepped in front of her, his hand raised as if to shield her. "She belongs to no one," he said, his voice steady, though his body was tense. The guards sneered, their eyes full of greed. "Do you know what she is worth in meat alone?" one growled. "You think you can take her from us, human? You will regret this." The girl's heart pounded. Her instincts screamed at her to run. She had lived her whole life in fear, and every lesson taught her that resistance meant pain. Yet something about the human's stance stopped her. He was smaller, weaker, yet he stood in front of her like a wall of iron. The leader of the guard stepped forward, blade drawn. "Last chance, human, hand her over or bleed for her." The human did not move. He kept his ground, his voice calm but unshaken. "I will not give her to you," he said. "Not now, not ever." The girl felt her breath catch. This was madness. No one risked themselves for her. No one fought against the market, yet here was a man who had no reason, no gain, no power, and he stood ready to fight them all. The guards moved closer, tension rising. The crowd from the market had begun to gather, whispers filling the air like smoke. Everyone wanted to see the end of the foolish human and the beast he had taken. Her hands shook, her chest ached. Inside her mind, chains rattled and broke. Something stirred deep within her heart. A question she had never dared ask before: could she be worth saving? The human glanced back at her, his eyes meeting hers for the first time without fear. He whispered one word, almost too soft to hear: trust. Her chest burned with fear, but also with something new, something fragile but powerful. And as the guards raised their weapons, the girl felt the weight of choice press upon her. For the first time in her life, she was not waiting for orders. She was not waiting for death. She was waiting for her own answer. The guards did not strike right away. They circled like wolves testing a smaller prey. Their eyes burned with greed, but the human's steady stance unsettled them. Still, the market crowd pushed closer, shouting for blood. Some demanded the girl be cut down. Others jeered at the human, calling him a fool. The girl's chest tightened. She wanted to curl into herself to hide from all eyes, but the human's voice cut through the noise. She walks with me, he said, calm but strong, and no chain will bind her again. Laughter erupted, cruel and sharp. One guard spat on the ground. Walk with you, he mocked. She is too big, too broken. She cannot even walk as a person. She is livestock, nothing more. The human ignored them. Instead, he reached down, picked up the fallen chain, and to everyone's surprise, he placed it gently into her hands. Hold this, he said, not because you are owned, but because you are free to let it go. Her fingers trembled as they closed around the cold iron. She had been dragged by chains all her life, pulled, beaten and mocked. Now she was holding one by her own choice. She did not know if she wanted to drop it or hold tighter. The guards sneered, but they stepped back slightly. The law of the market was twisted, yet once a slave was bought, the buyer's claim could not be easily challenged without proof of theft or fraud. Still, their anger burned. Their eyes promised this was not over. The human looked at her and gave a small nod, then began to walk, slow and steady. The crowd parted, whispering, some furious, some curious. The girl followed, her steps heavy, her heart pounding like a drum. Everywhere they passed, eyes followed, merchants muttered, mothers pulled their children closer, soldiers stared with cold suspicion. It was not the sight of a slave that shocked them. It was the sight of a human refusing to treat her as one. Her shoulders hunched. She tried to make herself smaller, though her body towered over him. She felt raw under so many eyes, but the human never looked back at the crowd. His gaze stayed forward as if their judgment did not matter. For a long time they walked in silence, until at last they reached the outer edge of the market. A dusty road stretched ahead. Quieter, away from the choking laughter of the auction square, the human finally stopped, turning to her, his eyes calm. Do you want to walk with me, or do you want to walk alone? Her voice cracked, unused to choice. I do not know, she whispered, her hands clenched around the chain. I have never walked without orders. He crouched slightly, meeting her lowered eyes. Then walk beside me until you know, he said. Simple words. But they carried weight. She could not escape. They continued down the path, the sun dipping lower, painting the world in orange. The girl's heart was torn between fear and a strange new warmth. But shadows were not far behind. The merchants had sent runners. The guards had sent word. She was marked for slaughter, and no one in the market would let a human rewrite her fate so easily. By nightfall, whispers of pursuit reached them. Footsteps on stone, hushed voices in the dark. The girl's sharp ears caught it before the human did. She froze, her breath quick. They are coming, she whispered. He stopped, his hand resting lightly near the tool at his belt. Then let them come, he said, though his eyes held the truth of danger. Her chest ached. She had seen masters beaten. She had seen slaves dragged back after trying to flee. The hunters always came, and they always won. But this time was different. Someone was willing to stand with her. They reached a ruined wall at the edge of the city. Broken stone and twisted metal offered a small place to rest. The human sat and motioned for her to do the same. She hesitated before sitting. Her size made the stone crack beneath her. She hugged her knees close, her glowing eyes fixed on the ground. The human finally spoke again, his voice softer. What is your name? The question struck like a blade. She shook her head, her throat tight. I have no name, she whispered. They called me beast, meat, failure, that is all. He studied her in silence. Then after a long pause he said, Then tomorrow you will have one. Her breath caught. She stared at him, unable to speak. No one had ever offered her a name. A real name. It was always taken, never given. For the first time since she left the cage, she felt something more than fear. A small spark deep inside her chest. Fragile, but alive. The night grew colder, footsteps drew nearer, and yet As she sat beside the human, clutching the broken chain in her scarred hands, she felt a strange truth. She was no longer walking the path of chains. She was walking the path of choice. The night was restless. The ruined wall offered little comfort. The girl sat with her arms wrapped around her knees, her glowing eyes watching the ground as if answers might appear there. The human rested a short distance away, silent but awake, listening to every sound of the city behind them. The chain lay between them, broken and heavy. She kept staring at it, torn between fear and longing. It had always defined her life, yet now she held the choice to drop it. She did not yet. When the first pale light of dawn touched the stones, the human rose, stretching his arms, his eyes tired but steady. He looked at her, not as a master looks at a slave, but as a man looks at another living being. "It is a new day," he said, "and you will not remain nameless." Her breath caught. The memory of his promise from last night pressed against her heart. She shook her head quickly. "I am not worthy," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Names are for people, not for beasts." The human crouched down in front of her, his eyes meeting hers, calm and firm. "You are not a beast," he said. "You are not meat, not failure. You are alive, and that is enough for a name." Her throat tightened. The words echoed through her mind, fighting the old voices that had always called her worthless. Still she trembled, afraid. "What name?" she asked, her voice small, almost too soft to hear. He was quiet for a long time, as if searching carefully, then at last he said, "Arya." His voice was steady, warm. "Your name is Arya." The word struck her chest like a spark. She whispered it under her breath. "Arya." It felt strange, almost too soft for her heavy frame, yet it filled her with something fragile and real, a piece of identity she had never owned. Tears burned her eyes, but she turned away quickly, ashamed. No one wept for kindness. No one dared to, yet she could not stop the tremor in her hands. The human only smiled faintly. "Arya means song," he explained. "Because even when voices are broken, even when chains try to silence them, a song can still rise." Her chest shook, the weight of years of silence pressing against her. She wanted to believe, but fear clung tightly. What if this was another trick? What if tomorrow he gave her back? What if his kindness ended with death? She whispered harshly. Why give me this? You risked yourself, you spent for me, you free me, and now you give me a name." "Why?" The human's eyes grew heavy, but his answer was simple. "Because you deserve more than what they told you, because no one should live as a thing." Before she could answer, voices broke the morning calm, shouts from the distance. The hunters were still searching, the merchants were furious. The guards would not let her go without a fight. Her body stiffened, fear crushed her chest. She rose quickly, towering over the human, her fists trembling. "They will come," she said, panic in her voice. "They will not stop, they will drag me back, and this name will mean nothing." The human did not flinch. Instead, he touched the broken chain lying on the ground. "Then let them try," he said, his tone sharp as steel. "They will not take Arya from me, not now, not ever." The way he said her new name froze her. No one had ever spoken to her like that, as if she was worth defending, as if her life carried meaning beyond chains and slaughter. Footsteps echoed, closer, metal striking stone. The hunters had found their trail. She could hear their laughter, cruel and eager. Her hands shook, torn between fleeing and fighting. But her eyes found the human again, his stance calm, though danger closed in. His courage spread through her like fire, small, fragile, but real. For the first time, she whispered her own name aloud, her voice trembling but clear. "I am Arya," she said, as if declaring it to the world. The human smiled faintly. The sound of her voice carrying her name gave him strength. "Yes," he said, "you are Arya." The hunters burst through the ruins, blades drawn, their eyes burning with greed. "There she is," one barked. "The beast, the oversized failure. Hand her over, human, or you both die." Arya's body stiffened. Fear roared inside her, but she looked down at the broken chain still in her hand. the cold iron that once defined her life, and for the first time, she felt the choice pressing hard. Would she live as meat, nameless and chained, or would she live as Aria, the one who was worth saving? The human stepped forward, small compared to her frame, yet unshaken. "Her name is Aria," he said, loud enough for every hunter to hear. "And she will not return with you." The hunters laughed, mocking, their weapons flashing, yet the words had already taken root inside her. The sound of her name on his lips burned brighter than their threats. She clenched the broken chain, not as a prisoner but as a weapon. Her fear twisted into something sharp, something strong, and for the first time she wanted to fight. The morning sun broke fully over the ruins, its light washing across the stones. The hunters circled, blades ready. The human stood firm, and Arya rose taller than ever, her voice no longer a whisper but a roar inside her heart. For the first time she was not nameless. She was not livestock. She was Arya, and she would not go quietly. The ruins shook with the weight of heavy boots. The hunters poured in from every broken archway, their eyes sharp, their weapons gleaming in the new sun. The merchants had paid them well, and the promise of selling Arya's body for meat made them hungrier than wolves. Arya stood tall, her chest rising and falling with fear, but for the first time she had a name, a fragile shield against the voices that called her beast and failure. The human's steady stance at her side kept her feet rooted. She wanted to run, yet she did not. The leader of the hunters stepped forward, his armor patched with old scars, his blade humming with energy. "Step aside, human," he barked. "This thing was marked for slaughter. She belongs to the market, not to you." The human's voice was calm, though his body was tense. "She belongs to no one," he said. "She has a name now, and you will not take her." The hunters laughed, cruel and sharp. One spat on the ground. "A name will not change what she is," he sneered. "She is meat, and you are a fool." The crowd from the market had followed, standing at the edges of the ruins. Whispers spread like smoke. Some cheered the hunters. Others muttered that the human was mad. A few watched in silence, their faces unreadable. Arya's hands shook around the broken chain she still held. Her heart thundered. She wanted to believe the human's words, but fear screamed inside her. Every lesson of her past told her that resistance only brought pain. Still, she looked at him and saw no fear in his eyes, only resolve. The hunters moved closer, their circle tightening, weapons raised. The leader sneered, "Last chance, human. Walk away, leave the beast, and you may live." The human did not move. His voice sharpened. "Her name is Arya," he said again, louder this time, each word striking like iron against stone. Arya's chest burned. Hearing her name spoken so firmly lit a fire inside her, fragile but real. She gripped the chain tighter, no longer as a prisoner, but as a fighter. The first hunter lunged, blade flashing. The human dodged and struck with his tool. Sparks lit the air as metal clashed. Arya's breath caught. He was smaller, weaker, yet he moved with precision. Every strike meant to protect her. But more hunters rushed in. The clash of steel and shouts filled the ruins. The human fought fiercely, but he was only one against many. Soon blood streaked his arm where a blade had cut. Arya froze, fear crushing her chest. The sight of him bleeding for her tore at her heart. Memories flooded back of chains, of masters, of pain. She had always obeyed, always stayed silent, always accepted cruelty. But now this man bled for her. This man fought for her when he had no reason. Something inside her snapped. Not with fear, but with rage. A deep roar built in her chest. She swung the heavy chain in her hands. The iron cracked against the ground with a sound like thunder. The hunter staggered back in surprise. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever. Her voice broke free in a shout. "My name is Arya," she roared. The chain swung again, striking a hunter's. Blade from his hand, sparks flying. The crowd gasped, whispers turned to shouts. Some laughed, some cursed, but many simply stared. The beast had spoken, and her voice was not weak. It was powerful. The hunters regrouped, anger burning in their faces. "Kill her!" the leader shouted. "Kill them both!" The fight exploded, the human and Arya side by side, iron and blade clashing against weapons. Of plasma and steel, dust rose. Sparks lit the air. The ruins became a storm of sound and fury. Arya's strength, long suppressed, now surged through her body. Every swing of the chain sent hunters stumbling. Every roar from her throat shook. The human fought with speed, his wound slowing him, but he refused to fall. For the first time, Arya was not waiting for commands. She was not waiting for pain. She was choosing to fight, choosing to stand, choosing to live. The hunters pressed harder, but their faces now showed unease. The beast they thought weak was striking back, and the human who should have run was still standing. At last, the leader charged straight for the human, his blade aimed at his chest. Arya saw it. Her heart stopped. She leapt forward with a roar, the chain wrapped around the hunter's arm. She yanked with all her strength. The blade flew from his grip, crashing to the ground. The crowd roared, shock and disbelief flooding the air. The beast had disarmed a hunter. The human seized the moment, striking the leader across the face, sending him sprawling into the dust. Silence fell for a breath. Hunters, staggering, crowd staring. And in that silence, Arya stood tall, chain in her hand, eyes blazing, her voice echoing. I am not meat. I am not beast. I am Arya. The words broke the air like thunder, and for the first time in her life, she did not feel small. She felt alive. Dust swirled in the ruins. Broken stone scattered under heavy boots. Hunters growled, some shaken, some furious. Their leader wiped blood from his mouth where the human had struck. His eyes burned with rage. Arya stood beside the human, chain coiled in her hands like a weapon of war. Her chest heaved. Her voice still echoed in her ears. I am Arya. The words felt strange, yet powerful, stronger than any chain. The crowd outside the ruins was no longer laughing. Whispers spread, through them like fire. They had expected slaughter, not defiance. They had expected to see a beast dragged back, not a girl standing tall with her name. The hunters regrouped, their blades humming with deadly light. The leader roared. And this cut them both down, they charged. Faster, angrier, their weapons flashing. The human raised his tool, blocking, striking, dodging. But every move cost him strength. Blood ran down his arm and leg. His breath came hard. Still he stood firm. Arya's heart twisted at the sight. Fear screamed inside her to run, to hide, to surrender. But another voice, new, fierce, rose louder. No, not this time. Not anymore. A hunter swung at her. The blade cut across her shoulder. Sparks of pain ripped through her. She staggered but did not fall. Her roar split the air. The chain lashed out, striking the hunter's chest, sending him crashing into the rubble. Her blood dripped. Her muscles shook. But with each strike, she felt chains breaking inside her, the invisible ones that had bound her spirit. The human stumbled. A blade nearly pierced his side. Arya saw it. Her body moved without thought. She shielded him. The blow cut across her arm instead. Pain seared, but she did not care. He looked up at her, his eyes wide. He had come to protect her, but now she was protecting him. Arya, he whispered, his voice raw. You do not have to. I choose, she shouted, cutting him off, her voice shaking the ruins. I choose to fight. Her words hit harder than any blade. Choice. It was the first time she had spoken it, the first time she had owned it. The hunters faltered, unnerved by her roar. One growled, "She is cursed." Another spat, "She should not be this strong." Their doubt spread like cracks through stone. Arya and the human pressed forward side by side, his strikes sharp, her chain heavy and brutal. Together they carved through the circle until only the leader stood, his rage boiling. He pointed his blade at her. "You are still nothing," he hissed. "You will die here, name or not." Arya stepped forward, towering over him, her glowing, eyes blazing like fire. "No," she said, her voice deep and steady. "I lived as nothing, but now I live as Arya." They clashed, his blade fast. Her chain heavy, sparks burst with every strike. The human tried to help, but Arya pushed him back. This fight was hers, her choice. The leader lunged, His blade aimed for her chest. She twisted. The chain wrapped his arm. She yanked. The blade clattered to the ground. His eyes widened in shock. With a final roar, she struck, the chain smashing across his chest. He fell hard into the dust, groaning, defeated. The crowd gasped. Silence fell heavy. Hunters who had mocked her now stared in disbelief. Their leader, beaten, their prey no longer prey. Arya stood over him, her chest rising and falling, her hands shaking. She could end him, crush him, silence him forever. The human stepped closer, bloodied but steady, his voice low. "Arya, the choice is yours." Her heart pounded. Years of chains screamed for vengeance, for blood. Yet something inside her whispered softer. She looked at the human, at his steady eyes, and she understood. Choice, real choice, meant more than just breaking chains. It meant deciding who she wanted to be. Slowly, she lowered the chain, her voice firm. "I will not kill for them," she said. "I am not beast. I am not slaughter. I am Arya." The leader spat blood, glaring, but he knew in that moment he had lost, not just the fight, but the right to define her. The crowd murmured louder, some with awe, some with anger, but all knew the truth. The nameless beast was gone. A new voice had risen. Arya turned to the human, her shoulders heavy but her eyes steady. "You bled for me," she said, her voice softer now. "And I chose to bleed for you." He gave a faint smile, weak from pain, but alive. "Together then," he whispered. And for the first time she smiled too, small, trembling, but real. The ruins lay broken, the hunters scattered, the crowd uncertain. But in that broken place, a new truth was born. The girl marked for slaughter had chosen her own path, and the galaxy would never see her the same again. The ruins were quiet at last, dust drifting through shafts of sunlight. Broken stones carried the weight of the battle. The hunters lay scattered, groaning, beaten, their leader clutching his chest where Arya's chain had struck. The crowd stood frozen at the edges, uncertain, caught between fear and awe. Arya stood tall, her chest rising and falling, blood streaking her arms and shoulders. But her eyes glowed steady. She had spoken her name, she had made her choice, and for the first time in her life, she felt alive. The human staggered beside her, blood dripping from his wounds, his face pale but his eyes unbroken. She turned quickly, catching him before he could fall, her massive hands trembling as they held him. "You should not have bled for me," she whispered, voice heavy with guilt. He gave a faint smile, his lips cracked. "I would bleed again," he said softly, "because you are not meat, you are Arya." Her throat tightened. The sound of her name on his lips felt like light in the darkness. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Only tears burned at the corners of her eyes. The crowd began to stir, voices rising. Some shouted for her capture. Others muttered that she was dangerous, too strong to live free. But some, quieter, spoke, with wonder. "She has a name," they whispered. "She fought beside a human. She is more than they said." The merchants, furious, pushed forward. "This is madness," one cried. "She cannot be allowed to walk free. She is a threat. She was marked for slaughter. The law demands it." Arya's heart twisted. The old fear clawed at her. The weight of chains pressed on her spirit. But then she felt the human's weak hand press against hers, steady despite his wounds. His voice low but sharp. "The law is broken," he said, "and I will not give her back." Gasps spread through the crowd. The defiance of a single human shook them. It was unthinkable, yet they could not deny what they had seen. The merchants shouted, but their words faltered. No hunter dared step forward again, not after seeing their leader fall. Fear laced their anger. Arya looked down at the human, his body trembling from loss of blood. Yet he still stood with her, still refused to let her be taken. Her heart ached. With something new, something stronger than fear, she knelt slowly, her massive form lowering until her glowing eyes met his at the same height, her voice soft but steady. "You gave me a name," she said. "You gave me choice. But now I give you mine." His brows furrowed weakly. "What do you mean?" he asked. She reached out her scarred hand, large, trembling but open. "Take my hand," she whispered. "Not as master, not as owner, but as one who sees me. Walk with me, if you will." Silence fell across the ruins. The crowd held its breath. The girl once mocked as beast was offering her hand, not in chains, but in freedom. The human's eyes softened, though pain lined his face. He lifted his hand, small compared to hers, yet steady, and placed it in her palm. Warmth surged through her chest, stronger than any roar, any fight. She held his hand gently, afraid of crushing it, yet unwilling to let go. Gasps rose from the crowd. The sight struck them harder than the battle, a human holding hands with what they once called livestock. It shattered something old, something cruel. The merchants turned away in disgust. The hunters limped off in shame, but whispers remained. Whispers that would spread beyond the market, of the giant girl given a name, of the human who stood against all. Arya rose slowly, lifting the human with her, supporting his weight. Together they walked from the ruins, the crowd parting in silence. No one dared stop them. Each step felt like a song in her chest, shaky but real. For years she had walked in chains, head down, nameless, waiting for slaughter. Now she walked with her head high, hand in hand with the one who gave her life back. The road stretched ahead, uncertain, full of danger, but it no longer mattered, for she was no longer alone. The human looked up at her, weak but smiling. "Arya," he whispered again, as if her name itself gave him strength. She smiled through her tears. "Yes," she said, her voice deep and steady. "Arya." And as the sun rose higher, burning away the shadows of the market the girl once marked for slaughter walked into a new world, not as meat, not as beast, but as herself, Arya,